Hi, it's Laura at Aquamarine18. Thanks for stopping by my channel today. Welcome or welcome back. In this video, I would like to share a look at a deck that is brand new to my collection. This is a deck that I backed on Kickstarter and that arrived to me a couple of days ago. You can see here that it is Le Tarot Ultraviolet. The artist is LaViolette, and I will link below the creator's website where this deck is going to be available. There are also some other goodies that go with the deck, like some stickers and things that will be there as well. The last I checked, it's kind of coming soon on the website, so it's not quite there for purchasing it just yet, but my understanding is that it will be. I will also link a interview below with Kathu Tarot with the creator LaViolette, and it is an interview that is in French, and this is a deck that is in French, but of course if you do not speak French, there is the auto-generated subtitles that will translate it into English or the other language that you are most comfortable with. So without further ado, I'm very excited to share this deck. So it came in this bag here, this kind of a tie-dyed bag with a screen print here of the deck. It did not come with a box, so I used my friend Sarah of Waterchild Tarot's tutorial of how to make a tuck box, and I made my own tuck box for the deck using some stickers that I got in the Kickstarter, as well as the devil, of course, and the name of the deck there. So I will be storing it in that and inside of this bag. It is a large deck compared to a standard tarot card. The cards are quite a lot larger, as you can see. This is the Cats Rule the Earth Tarot, just for comparison, that's a standard size. It is also very thick, as you can see. This, in terms of kind of production, things like cardstock, this is my ideal. I love the sturdiness of this. It is matte cardstock. I'll show you the backs here. Have some symbols of the suits going around and closed eyes here. I will say, folks who watch my channel know that too many eyes is a thing that I struggle with, and there's a couple of cards in here that do challenge me on that basis, but not enough to make me not back this beautiful deck. So what I'm thinking that I will do is zoom in a bit to show the cards in the majors, and then from there I will zoom out again a little bit to show the minors, to compare the suits. So before we get into the deck, I'll share that it comes with 2 extra cards here. And I can zoom in a little bit. So we have first a explanation of the changed names of the court cards specifically. So this is, these would be on the right hand side here, the French titles of the traditional names. So we have Page, Queen, King, and Knight here on the right hand side, and then here we have the names that LaViolette has chosen to represent those in this deck. And so Pèlerin, this is like a pilgrim, mystic, a prophet, and guide. So those are the equivalents in this deck, as you will see. There's also some extra information here on the bottom of the card in terms of where the deck was printed and the date there, and the creator's website as well. There's a second extra card, and these just have the the back of the deck. There's a second extra card here which you can pause it and read it if you would like, but which speaks to the vision for the deck. Being based in the creator, seeing a need for a deck in French that is inclusive, particularly inclusive for femme folks, for gender nonconforming folks to as LGBTQ plus folks, gender diverse folks, right? With a kind of nature spirituality represented as well. And, you know, it goes on to talk about uses for the deck, who might be interested in the deck, and then the use of the, you know, the language of ultraviolet, and a reference to, you know, the rainbow, and rainbow kind of symbolism in queer movements, and so on. So that's a nice inclusion there. There is, for this deck, there is no guidebook. It is just the cards, and the bag. So, and the stickers, which I backed extra on the Kickstarter. So I'll flip through the majors, and then I think for the minors it would be fun to put them side by side in the different suits. So this will be chatty. I have things to say. It's not quite first impressions because I have gone through and had a peek at things. I've reordered the deck slightly just to facilitate laying out the 4 suits beside each other. Since when I received it, it came with kind of all the aces together and all the 2s together and all the 3s together, and I wanted to be able to make a pile for each suit for the purposes of this walkthrough. But I haven't done any readings with this deck yet. I've just looked through the imagery. So I feel like I say without further ado a lot, and then there's more ado because I keep rambling and don't do what I say that I was going to do. But starting here with the Fool, I love that the Fool has, you know, this fanny pack here and a dog with them ready to go on an adventure. I like the practical footwear on this Fool. I think that that's a good, important inclusion for someone on a journey, right? The Magician, and just a note for folks who, you know, are unfamiliar with this, you can see in several of the cards, you know, in this card, for example, or even in the name of the deck, you can see, you know, sometimes that there's a period here like this. What this is doing is, you know, disrupting the binary of masculine and feminine language in French. So in French, you know, violet, violet, like this, would be masculine, and violette, with the TE on the end, feminine. So that is what this is doing, just for folks who are unfamiliar with that. Same thing here. So the Magician, and we see somebody working with herbs and a mortar and pestle, and you see all the symbols down here on the card, quite traditional in some ways, but I really like this kind of, you know, kitchen magician kind of feeling that this one has, a kind of kitchen witch vibe, and there is some astrological correspondences included in this deck as well. The High Priestess. I will say that I love something that stood out for me about this deck. I love a deck with lots of leg hair depicted. I personally appreciate that. I feel included when I see a representation like this. And we see here all of these astrological glyphs connecting to the center of this figure, and a bit of a line connecting the figure to the moon. So we get a sense of intuition, of particular kinds of knowledge in this card that represents the High Priestess. L'Impératrice, the Empress. And I like so much about this. So, you know, somebody is taking off their footwear and has tossed it off to the side to, you know, feel the grass under their feet. And I really felt this card when I opened this deck because, of course, where I live, it is just a couple of days into spring. We still have snow. It's definitely too cold to do this, but I dream of being able to take off my shoes outside as the snow is gone here. So I really like how focused on being out in nature this card feels. You know, I have gender diverse, you know, and trans-inclusive symbolism in the card, which I also really love, and really love especially in the Empress in particular. Love that. the Emperor. And so we see here that the traditional major arcana titles have actually been kept in this deck. Though certainly the symbolism in some cases is quite non-traditional, whereas in the minors, the courts were changed. So you get the ram representation here for Aries in the Emperor. There's quite a lot of representation of diverse abilities and disability in this deck as well, which I appreciate is not something that we see enough in tarot for sure. I really like this, and I like how pink the Emperor card is. That makes me happy. The Hierophant connected to the corvids up here. We have the keys. There are nods to, you know, traditional symbolism, but also very innovative, and I love the colors in this deck. As we'll see, the minors are color-coded in this deck. I love this Lovers. This Lovers feels much more non-monogamous or kind of decentering of monogamy in a fairly explicit way, to me anyway, than most Lovers cards that I have seen, even in kind of twist LGBTQ plus centric decks. So I really like that a lot. The Chariot here I found interesting because I feel like, you know, this could be somebody who perhaps doesn't have a lot of hair, and this is the sky behind them with the curtains pulled, or this could be, you know, billowing hair with stars in it, you know, depending on how you see this image. I've seen it both ways now that I've looked at this. And, you know, say again, some of the traditional symbols included. Justice in this deck is 8. There's a lot of eyes in Justice. I can embrace the symbolism as relevant. People know that I struggle with lots of eyes, or if you're just tuning into my channel for the first time, lots of eyes is a thing that I am somewhat challenged by. But there are decks that I am so captivated by that I will accept a little bit of it, and this is one of them. I really like this a lot. Hermit. I like that this is kind of both a mountain and maybe a mouth of a cave at the same time. Wheel of Fortune. Strength, which is 11. The figure is brushing the teeth of the bear, which I thought was quite interesting. I feel like this is really beautiful to me, because I feel like it, you know, on the Strength card, it's depicting, you know, a kind of an act of care and compassion and wellness for this bear in a way that I quite like. And there's, you know, more leg hair, which I'm also into. I like the backgrounds in a lot of these cards too, with these details like pine cones in the background. The author talks about, or the author, the creator, mentions, I can't remember if it's on this title card or in the Kickstarter campaign, I don't remember where I read it now, mentions that the deck features kinds of animals and plants that are in the region where the creator lives, in particular, in Quebec. This is a hanged one. The moth. Gives a sense of the kind of suspension of that hanged one for sure. The Death card, very bright, very traditional in some ways, but for the colors, which are fabulous. Temperance. Okay, you can kind of see the feet through the boots on this Temperance. I think that's fun. And the figure's arms are pouring. This devil, I think, is fabulous. I really, really like this. We have the kind of different voices on the shoulder here, one, grinning and one frowning. And it's a definite kind of nod to historic devil cards in older decks, but also very, very contemporary at the same time. Really into this. Tower. This tower is rooted. Tower is deeply rooted, but it's coming down anyway. I think that this is a really interesting one. And the tower coming down as people speak up, which I think is an interesting take on the tower. L'étoile, the star. They're beautiful. See the birds? There's a blue jay back there. There's lots of blue jays where I live. So I like to see all of these familiar creatures in this deck, and how serene this person looks. This moon is interesting to me. I will say I'm not as a rule a fan of humans being inserted into moon cards. I kind of like when it's just, the moon and not a whole lot else going on. This is an interesting, like the moon brought down to earth, perhaps, or the moon's effect on people. Could be something that this card is getting at. The sun. I love that in the sun we do not have a baby on a horse. I'm not surprised that we don't have a baby on a horse in a deck like this, but I'm quite happy that we don't have a baby on a horse. I like this connection with the sun in this card. This may be my new favorite Judgment card. I love, the kind of unabashed nakedness, nudity in this card. I love that they've removed their masks and are, seeing each other and allowing themselves to be viewed openly. Thinking about Judgment in that way, I think, this feels very empowering to me. I really, really like this. I really appreciate this, for sure. And of course, the fact that there's a diversity of body shapes in this deck, which I haven't mentioned so far, that runs throughout the deck is something that something that made me really want to back this deck when I saw it. And Demon, the world. This is the color symbolism that we'll see in the minor arcana in a moment. See, the person has a mastectomy scar, and they're holding a lighter there. And we get a sword, a wand, pentacles, and a cup there, as well as the animals. Really beautiful. Okay, so for the minors, I want to zoom out to see if I can get them in the frame. All at one time. I like seeing, comparisons of the different suits. So how much am I going to have to zoom out to make this happen? Okay. Put the other things off to one side there. There's some eyes in the swords. Just, mention that in case others have a thing with eyes in the way that I do. Okay. So here we have the 4 suits, and the majors are over there. And so you see the color scheme that each one has. Each one has several colors in the suit, but definitely has a prominent color with red, blue, purple, and green. I really like these. You know, they feel traditional to aces depicting a hand holding a symbol of the suit, but of course also feel really modern. I really like always, you know, the imagery of a pencil or pen in the aces. I think that that's really apt. Got some eyes there. A lot of root imagery in this deck as well, which I really like. And the growth of the pentacles. So, you know, we see this little heart ring in the cup. So there's so many little details in these cards that I think are just really special. Really, really special. Going ahead to the twos. I love this Two of Cups. This feels to me more traditional than a lot of the deck. We get this kind of intertwining symbolism, you know, of two people. You know, there's a lot of familiar elements here, while it is certainly contemporary and unique as well. The clovers in the Two of Pentacles are interesting. It certainly captures the kind of idea of balance. Again, you know, so there's some familiar aspects of the water, for instance. Extra eyes. And I think that the chainsaw is an interesting one for the Two of Wands. You know, think of the Two of Wands as, you know, at least I think of the Two of Wands as this kind of there's a kind of visioning in the Two of Wands, you know, of what, you know, what's possible, and perhaps there's a sense of kind of clearing the way for something in this card, I think. A lot of the minors have these kind of close-ups of, you know, faces. There's a lot of hands in this deck as well. So there's the threes. There's three people in the cauldron instead of just sharing the drinks together is interesting. Yeah, I think this one has the three sisters of corn, beans, and squash or pumpkin, growing together, working together, enriching each other, you know, as companion planting does. And the three faces. This one has, I'm not sure how well you can see this, but there's people kind of clinging to the swords here. I'm going to try not to say something about every single card, or we'll be here for a really long time. We're probably already here for a really long time. I really like this Four of Wands. It's more fiery than many Four of Wands feel to me, and I quite enjoy that. Four of Pentacles feels very fixed, very rigid. You know, a lot of Four of Pentacles, I think, have that kind of a sense to them. This kind of stability, perhaps rigidity, you know, in a more negative way at times. I think all cards are positive and negative for me, or neither. But I think you can see, you know, both the kind of benefits and drawbacks, we'll say, of kind of structure in this card in an interesting way. the rest of the Four of Swords with his roots. You know, the rooting of the mind here with some eyes going on up at the top. Some really interesting choices of symbolism in this deck that will take some time to, I think, unpack. This is a fives. I really like this Five of Cups a lot. I like this kind of, I would say this is a mirror. And, you know, being captivated by that and not seeing perhaps these cups over here. I think that that's really effective. I really like that. The Five of Wands is interesting in that you don't see kind of a bunch of people with the different wands, but perhaps if there's a conflict here, it's within one person, or one person perhaps working against themselves in some way, or experiencing a challenge themselves, but not necessarily one that is coming from other people. I don't know runes, but there are, I believe, runes here. Someone can tell me what? It's not a system that I know. Six of Wands feels very traditional to me. The Six of Swords in a sense too, though, you know, here we really, I think, have the emphasis on the journey of the Six of Swords being a self-propelled one, where one is trying to, you know, make a move, but is also kind of holding oneself back at the same time here with this person's, you know, shadow there, pulling back. And it feels very uphill, you know. You think of this card showing a movement from choppy water to smooth water. This is a very, feels like that making that trajectory feels very uphill for this person. I like this Six of Coins or Pentacles. It feels a lot less kind of hierarchical than a lot of Six of Coins, which I appreciate, and I'm sure is very much deliberate. So here we have the sevens. The Seven of Cups, I think, is quite traditional and quite straightforward in a lot of ways. The Seven of Pentacles, I would say similarly. I like that it's tomatoes in the Seven of Pentacles. I enjoy that. The Seven of Swords is an interesting one. And here we can see top surgery scars. Down here, some scalpels, that is what that's called, and someone putting on a medical mask. And this makes me think of, for me, numerologically, the seven has to do with reflection and self-reflection. Sevens for me, numerologically, would have to do with wisdom, kind of deep insight, and maybe, self-knowledge, and self-actualization. And I could think of this with respect to that meaning. I can also think of, communicating oneself to the world, right? Insofar as the air suit has to do with communication and what we communicate to the world. So here we have the eights. I really like the Eight of Pentacles a lot, showing sewing here really beautifully, I think. I like the Eight of Swords a lot as well. In some ways, really not traditional in terms of its imagery, but certainly very clear in terms of the particular aspects of the Eight of Swords that it is it's getting at. All these piles of cards. Every time I do any kind of flip through, I can't help but feeling I'm just making a big mess. So we're at the nines. The Nine of Pentacles being tons of cupcakes just makes me happy. We think of the Nine of Cups, some people will call the wish card, and I really like this, this particular imagery as a representation of that, I think is absolutely beautiful. The Nine of Swords, being a card that for me often has to do with fears, worries, the kind of depiction of being, kept up at night by, stressing out about something, and his hand just kind of like putting the phone down. I can relate to this card, certainly, in a lot of ways. And the tens. I find that this figure in the Ten of Wands is drawing themselves into a box. Really interesting. You have them, holding all of these wands in a really kind of precarious way that you would think that they would fall, which is something we expect to see in a Ten of Wands. But they've boxed themselves in with this, right? Or they could be, coming up with some kind of structure, right? There's a lot of ways that I think you could interpret something like this. I love the kind of ceremony and ritual and magic in this tea set in the Ten of Cups. I think that this takes it away from, this really takes it away from a kind of nuclear family-centric depiction in a way that I really appreciate. This could speak to anyone, and there are some little faces in the cups, very neutral faces. I think that's really beautiful. This one is very interesting to me. I think it's a great depiction of a Ten of Swords, and I really like how some of these figures, and the minors in particular, are quite kind of abstract, different kind of shapes and things. Lots of eyes, as you can see. Now the courts. I'm going to just say right now that this deck may have my favorite court cards ever. I really like so many of these cards in this deck. So these are the pages. And I think that they're absolutely fabulous. I especially love the Page of Wands. Starting a fire with their hairy legs and pulled up socks. I just think that's absolutely fantastic. I love this. I love the inclusion of the dippers in the Page of Swords. There's a sense of planting something new in the Page of Coins. I really like that. So these ones would be the knights, and you can see there's no horses here, but they're certainly all people in motion, people on the move, people who are going somewhere in all different ways, right? Walking, skating, walking beside a bicycle. I was going to say cycling. They're not really cycling. And skateboard. I love the tattoos on this person. I think that's amazing. I love seeing tattoos in tarot as well. I love that this person's cup is a kind of travel mug. Like, I think a travel mug as a cup on a knight card is brilliant. I absolutely love that. And this one feels very, very fiery, and this one feels very airy, so I really like how they depict their suits. these ones would be the queens traditionally. So you can see here for the quartz, for the different suits, they've put the two elemental representations. So all of these mystics, again, who would be the queen traditionally, have the symbol for water in the top left, since all of those cards are associated with that. And then they each have their own, you know, air for swords, earth for pentacles, and so on. So I quite like the way that that has been structured. If, you know, astrological symbolism is important to you, it's there. I really like this person's dress a lot. I really like as well, I really like the kind of planet background on there as well. And lastly, we have the prophetess, and these would be kings traditionally. So again, you know, they've all got fire in the top left and then their respective suit symbols in the top right, and they all have animals. And I really love the animals in these prophetess cards. I love seeing, actually, I think at one point or another in my life, I have owned all of these kinds of footwear. So there's something quite relatable about these cards to me in that respect. I think I've owned that belt too. I really like, you know, just the outfits. I like the personalities. I like the connection to the different animals that have to do with their respective suits. I really love these four very, very much. So that is Le Tarot Ultraviolet by LaViolette. Again, I will link below where you can find this deck. If you have stuck with me for this long, watching this really, really rambly introduction to this deck, thank you. If you got this deck, let me know what you think of it and how you're enjoying it. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you again soon. Bye.